Hey guys, steroids and CrossFit. That's what we're going to talk about today. Hey, welcome to the channel, Old Guy Inc. Do me a favor, please subscribe, drop a comment, like or don't like, agree or disagree. I'd love to hear from you. So a lot of times when I talk about things, it's not necessarily correlative to what's hot or what's trending today or even super recently in CrossFit. Sometimes it's just kind of like what's on my mind. And I don't really even know why, but for some reason, I just kind of got to thinking a little bit about steroids, probably because I got a whole bunch of competitions coming up and I'm wishing that I had some. No, just kidding. But I did want to just talk a little bit about probably the name that comes to the top of everybody's mind, which is Ricky Gerard. And as most of you know, I'm assuming by now you know that in 2017 he placed third at the CrossFit Games, but then tested positive for banned substances and then did a 4-year suspension, and now he's back. I think it brings up some good points. Clearly it's polarizing. And so without a doubt, some people are just going to label him a cheater and they're not happy to see him back. And then of course there's people on the other side of the fence that are just like, hey, second chances. It's great to see him back. Hope he's clean. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today because there's a lot of different ways to look at that. And so I'm probably more on the side of, hey, dude, we all make mistakes. Welcome back. That's assuming that there is a testing process that we trust and that him and other athletes are going to be continuously tested. And if that's the case, I am certainly not one, right? The older you get, I'm just about to turn 50. The older you get, I think for most of us, the more passes you're willing to give people because, hey man, life is tough and we all make choices. And yes, even choices that you're like, oh, I would never make that choice. Well, good on you, but let's just be careful because everybody's entitled to make some mistakes and live and learn. There's a lot of pressure in this world. A lot of people choose to do things and make decisions that they probably shouldn't. Steroids is just one of them. A lot of times there's money on the line. There's all these excuses. And so once again, I'm not here to make excuses for why people do it. I am against it. I've never done steroids. So therefore, I really can't speak to it. But, as CrossFit grows like any other sport, there's some crazy statistics out there. And of course, who really knows? But just based on like polls of, specifically talking to say like ex-NFL athletes, people who are willing to admit that they did steroids. 10% give or take of ex-NFL athletes admit to taking steroids. Okay. So we can just about take that number and multiply it times 5. Okay. But that's just important to understand. I understand CrossFit isn't necessarily at the level or even remotely close to the NFL, but the same principles apply. Why are those people doing that? A, because it works, but B, because there's money on the line. There's sponsorships. There's only very limited slots at the CrossFit Games or on NFL teams. Getting one of these slots equals money. Okay, so it's important. People will do a lot of shady things for money. And I'm not necessarily here to cast stones on people who kind of go down the wrong path in pursuit of that money. It's easy to kind of lose sight of things. I believe in the Major League Baseball, it's a similar type statistic. I think it's a little bit less for how many people admit it after they retire and kind of fill out the survey. It's a little bit less, I think, than 10%. But if you speak to people like Jose Canseco or Caminiti, they estimate that upwards of 50 to 85% of people, in their opinion, in Major League Baseball have or are taking steroids. Once again, maybe they're just trying to, get blame away from them by saying, hey, everybody's doing it. But the bottom line is there is a significant history, right, from Lance Armstrong and the Tour de France to super popular sports like the NFL and baseball, track and field. lots and lots of athletes are obviously using steroids. Now, I don't agree with that, but here's the deal. We don't give a shit when those athletes come back. Like, nobody cares when an NFL athlete gets a suspension for steroids and then comes back. Like, literally nobody. Like, for the most part, 99% of you watching this, you don't care either, right? When you're one of the players on your favorite team gets busted for a performance-enhancing drug, you don't care. You don't really think any differently of them. And then when they come back, you're just like, yeah, they're back. I mean, we're not talking like second chances. We're talking multiple chances we give to these other professional athletes. So I'm just saying, I don't condone it by any athlete, but I certainly don't want to hold CrossFit athletes to a completely different standard. Now, don't get me wrong. We love CrossFit, and we do think, whether it's movement standards or our community standards, I mean, the CrossFit community does like to promote itself as being above a lot of other sports and fitness activities as far as our standards. And that's why there's so much gripe going on right now with all of the questionable movement standards we're seeing, whether or not videos are getting judged appropriately and people aren't getting penalized for doing what we think are incorrect movements. So we do want to hold CrossFitters to this high standard, and I get it. And of course, we want to see the fittest athletes compete with what they're naturally given and what they've naturally achieved through training. I do not want to see the steroid CrossFit Games, okay? However, what I'm going to say is, look, let's just not pretend that we're that different than other sports. CrossFit has become popular enough that there is money on the line, there is significant sponsorships, and that makes people do things. So anyway, as far as Ricky goes, I mean, you know what? Props on him. He just placed second at the semifinals. He's going to the games. You know, I hope that he does get tested so that for his sake, he kind of like his, hey, look, here's proof. So that's basically just my take on that. But I wonder what you guys are thinking. I mean, how many people are out there are just like, no, lifetime ban? I mean, like, if you do performance-enhancing drugs, you should just be banned from any sport forever. Is that what you think? Do you think CrossFitters should be held to a different standard than other professional athletes? I don't know. I know in mixed martial arts that there's a lot of people that definitely do draw the line because of the fact that your job is to try to hurt another human being. However, I would say, man, no comparison to MMA and the NFL, okay, as far as what they do. But I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of damage that happens in the NFL, right? I mean, when some huge linebacker jacked up on steroids, some freak athlete, 250 to 300 pounds or whatever, crashes into you at 1,000,000 miles an hour, that's pretty dangerous, and a lot of significant injuries do occur. So I'm not quite sure why we give all the NFL athletes, as an example, a pass on pretty much anything, whether it's criminally related or it's performance-enhancing drug related. But I just feel like in CrossFit, we probably shouldn't quite be so abrasive, and maybe you're not. Maybe you're welcoming back Ricky with open arms. And basically, you know, I'm kind of looking at him as an underdog story. I mean, the dude got trashed on. It had to be totally embarrassing. He's had to work his ass off for 4 years. I'd like to assume that he's expecting and will be tested. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt if those tests come back clean. You know, I think it's a pretty good comeback story about a guy who almost made the games and then got a little bit too caught up in the notoriety and being so close, and guy just made a bad decision. So I don't know. Be interesting to see what you guys think on the topic. I don't know tons and tons about steroids because I've never really even been interested in doing them. I've never really looked into it. I mean, I'll tell you right now, some of it could be because it's just not readily available to me, right? A lot of times we're a victim of circumstances. I mean, hey, if somebody I knew and trusted was a doctor and they're like, hey, Clay, here's this EPO and I can help you take it super safely, and all of a sudden you'll be like 10 times better athlete. I mean, would I be tempted? Of course. And then if you told me, hey, Clay, there's money involved if you do better. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that I haven't been put in those situations and I haven't made those decisions. But I just don't want to be super hypocritical about people who have made bad choices and then come back. So that's my take. I guess I'm on team Go Ricky. What team are you on?